Hey everyone, I'm here with Adam Pekarsky, founding partner of Pekarsky and Company. How you doing, Adam?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
I can't complain. It's all good. Adam, thanks for taking the time. Just wondering if you could kind of give us a bit of a background on just you and your company and kind of what you guys do.
Yeah, by all means. So I'm a recovering lawyer by training. I practiced from 97 to '01, and I've been in the executive search game ever since. So coming up on 20 years, hard to believe. Um, our firm's been around since 2011, or sorry, since 2009. Our firm's been around since 2009, and we focus on executive search for basically any function that exists in corporate services, and we are industry agnostic and we are geographically unconstrained. So we can do searches across the country. We can source candidates from around the world. And as I say, industry agnostic. And from a functional perspective, if the job lives at corporate head office and it's at the manager level up into the C-suite, we do it, and then board work as well. So beyond just C-suite work, if it's a public or not-for-profit board, we do a lot of that search work as well.
So, with that, I mean, employment is a massive concern right now for so many people. What's the current landscape from your perspective?
It's pretty tough right now. I mean, you have to understand one thing: whether you're in a downturn or in a tight boom kind of market, the top percentile of talent is always still going to be the top percentile of talent. And every client company we've ever worked with still will be interested in making sure they've got the very best people on their team. And so, it's and there's a great quote someone shared with me the other day that you only see who's been swimming naked when the tide goes out. And I think the reality is that um, Calgary's been cutting people for a long time, sadly, 5.5 years, coming up on six this summer since the oil downturn. That the fat in the system, quote unquote, is long gone. We're now cutting bone, but every organization is still staffed with the people they think are the best of the best, and so there will always be a premium in any economy, in any market, for talented people. Bottom line. Having said that, it's tough right now. There is way more supply than demand. Unemployment has gone up, and the demand at work has gone down. There's just subject to certain sectors. I think if you're Amazon, you're loving this right now, unless maybe you're an employee there, in which case you're apparently not very happy. But for most of us, and us in the executive search world, there are lots of candidates who are looking for work, and there's not quite as many opportunities on which we are engaged to find those folks. Um, Keep in mind, we started this firm in '09 in the throes of the last financial crisis. We survived the Calgary flood in 13. We survived the crushing downturn of oil prices in 15 and 16. Here we are in 20. Talent always, always comes back quickly. And I think in this particular case, it's going to snap back because the challenges facing organizations are unprecedented, and you are going to want the smartest brains around that table with you to navigate your way through this. I'll give you one quick example. Health and safety has always been at a premium. The oil and gas industry has been a leader industry when it comes to HSE. But how many health people are there employed in the tourism industry, in hotels? For sure, they have HSE people, but what is the reporting relationship? I think we're going to start to see the emergence of things like a chief health officer, much like we have a chief information or chief financial or chief legal officer who will report right to the CEO. And the board is going to start paying attention, because if you're on the board of Cargill right now, you're nervous, and at some point that liability is going to find its way back to you if you haven't done the right thing for your people. So I really do believe that for reasons obvious like health, and less obvious, just the changing landscape of how we work, um, there will be a premium on talent as there always has been. It's just that right now, as we sit here in early May, everyone's just sort of holding on, playing defense, preserving cash, responding to the daily challenge, and not being overly aggressive and even strategic around hiring. They're making do with what they've got. That will change. That will change very quickly.
Well, and that's interesting because a lot of the people that I talk to, I mean, there's this struggle of there's a lot of great people that are employed and they don't want to get rid of them, but they don't know if they can afford them. So do they get rid of them, temporary layoffs, and then how do they bring them back? I mean, that's kind of a for a lot of business owners, that's a big struggle.
It's a huge struggle. Look, there's so many issues that you can unpack there. So you put someone on a temporary layoff. I mean, and I'm not a labor and employment expert, but you put someone on a temporary layoff, and let's say you keep their benefits going. And let's say that by doing so, and there's been extensions to the period of time that you can have them temporarily laid off before you have to either bring them back or sever them. Are you doing right by them? Are you preventing them from seeking another opportunity? Whereas if you just rip the band-aid off, permanently lay them off, pay their severance obligation, well, in a sense, you've given them, depending on how senior they are, you've given them a chunk of money that they can do something with.
Mhm.
And now they know it's like a breakup, and it might be completely amicable, but they are now completely unencumbered to their former employer. Whereas a temporary leave is kind of like, a relationship where you agree to take some time apart. And but are we dating or are we single? I think there's some clarity that comes from ripping off the band-aid, severing your people and saying, I will give you a great reference. But then, as an employer, do I really want to see one of my star people land at one of my competitors?
Right.
Not really. Um, there are ramifications that are not going to be felt for several months, I believe. I'll give you a quick example. A friend of mine who's a VP at a company where the 2019 bonuses were not paid out. The explanation from management was, we need the cash. And so we're not paying you your 2019 bonuses. Well, this individual shared with me that the minute this thing is over, they're gone, because that bonus, in the eyes of an employee, a bonus is actually just deferred compensation that has been earned. Employers use the word bonus to suggest something extra, something over and above what we're paying you to do. An employee sees bonus as a deferral of the comp I'm entitled to for being great at my job. So when you take away something that's rightfully mine, my deferred comp slash bonus, so that you can keep funding the business, and you take that bonus away for 2019, which is a different time, pre-COVID, it was for the work I did then, and you're using that money now. I'll stick with you. I will be loyal with you to get you through this, because I'm a team person, but I'm annoyed. And the moment that I have the opportunity, I'll be gone because I won't forget this. And I think there's a lot of that happening now. It's invisible. You can't, those people aren't going to make threats. They want their job, and they're good team players. But it will rear its head the moment that it's safe to go outside again, so to speak. So there's all kinds of ramifications.
Well, and I guess then that's the thing is how much like a lot of people say, hey, I'm totally transparent. Some people say I'm somewhat transparent, but how transparent should you be to try and keep that morale up?
Well, so I think that's a great question, and I think there's a distinction to be made, and maybe it's a distinction without a difference. But I think employers have to err on the side of transparency. That's certainly been our approach with our people. They know everything. They know what we're thinking. We communicate with them more now than we did pre-COVID. We're having Zoom calls constantly, not only with our clients and with our suppliers, but with each other. If you want to email me, I'm at my computer, so just Zoom me or FaceTime me or whatever, because I want to have this conversation as though we were walking down the hall and I bumped into you in the hallway or in the kitchen making a coffee. I want to recreate that sense of eye to eye contact as best I can. So, from an employer perspective, I would be erring heavily on the side of over communication. You know, don't patronize your people. Don't think that you can keep things from them. Obviously, there are reasons that boards go in camera and kick even the senior most management team out of the room. There are certain things that have to happen at the adult table, so to speak, and not at the broader table when the kids are around. But I don't subscribe to that view in running my firm. Now, strategically, from an employee's perspective, I you have to be smart. You have to look out for yourself. And I think you are able to do this, rub your belly and tap your head by both being loyal while also looking out for yourself. And does it serve you well in my bonus example to march into the CEO's office and stomp the table and say, the minute things get better, I'm out of here? No. It might feel good for a moment in time, but keep in mind, you've just declared yourself a fidelity risk. And the moment that CEO has to figure out the next round of layoffs, you probably just moved up the list a little bit because as much as it felt good to say that or declare your intentions or let it be known on the record that you're not happy, that doesn't serve you very well. So it's a balancing act between picking your spots around transparency and candor as an employee. But an employer, I think you owe it to your people to be as transparent and unpaternalistic, if that's a word, as you can be and as you ever have been.
Well, and again, and that's kind of a trend I see from people is saying that transparency, like it's almost like I need to do the layoffs now, or I need to do what I need to do so that I'm around 3 or 6 months from now to either bring you back or to grow it. And I think that helps. But
That's such a timely observation. So I'll give you a real life example. Right now, because we've always been a very conservative firm, that way we run our business, we have no debt. We fund the business purely out of cash flow, and we've always left way more money in the bank account than is reasonable, to the point that I think the bank hates us. I mean, we're a terrible client, and so much so that as our bank balance would grow, we'd get a call from our manager at the bank saying, do you want to do something with this money? And it's like, no, because in another life I must have been like a depression era baby, because in some respects I feel completely built for this. So we have right now, I'm not afraid to tell you, a lot of cash in the bank. And I think so under the heading transparency, if my employees who may be facing layoffs or who we've had to roll salaries back on, we did a 20% rollback back to March 16th. Happy birthday. If they knew the bank balance, for example, they might look at that and say, wait a second, why would you have all this cash in the bank and you're rolling back my salary and you're laying off those people and we're doing this and all these other unhappy things? And the answer is because as an owner, my goal, my singular goal right now is to survive this and to preserve cash and to behave as though I have $100 in the bank. And so that means that every month, every penny that goes out the door, there has to be a corresponding penny that comes in the door. And if we do that, then the bank balance won't go down. And so there's intense expense management happening right now. Begging, borrowing, stealing, not stealing, not yet. I haven't had to do that, but begging the landlord for rent relief, happily accepting the government wage subsidy program, happily accepting the Receiver General's offer to delay me paying my taxes to both the province and the feds, availing myself of all of those tools as I sit on a pile of cash. Why? Because I'm probably going to need it, and because it will burn much, much quicker than it would otherwise burn if we didn't implement these things. So we have to have the discipline and the rigor and the fortitude to behave today as though we're on our last dollar, even though we're not, because I can tell you that at our current burn rate, even on the most disastrous revenue scenarios, far exceeding, I think, the time by which the planet will have found a vaccine, we can outlast this thing. But it's going to require the team and the employees to trust us that we're not rolling back their salaries so we can juice our profits so the owners can take out dividends and go to Maui. That is not what's happening. We are preserving cash so we can outlast this thing and get to the other side. Now, what awaits us on that shoreline when we get to the other side is a whole different discussion, because Calgary's got other problems right now. But one calamity at a time is sort of my new mantra, and that's my approach to it.
What you know what, and I buy into that as well. And we operate our business very similar in the fact that you have to be disciplined and make those difficult decisions so that you can, manage those rainy days. And I think that that's one of the things we're finding with a lot of people, that people don't like dealing with conflict. They don't want to they don't want to lay staff off. They don't want to deal with that. And so what they do is they avoid to the point where they're too far down the path. So you got to act quickly and be disciplined with cutting expenses and everything. Otherwise, you'll sink your company. I mean,
Y- Well, and don't forget, and I think this is particularly true in Calgary, more so than other centers. And we do work all across the country, but I see it more in Calgary. There is a corollary to tightening the screws in times of need, and that is opening the floodgates when things are good. And the boom and bust DNA of Calgary, there's a reason that in good years we have great stampede parties.
right.
We know how to open the tap as well as anybody in this town, but we also, and we don't get enough credit for it from our friends, say in Toronto or the Globe and Mail or the national media, but we know how to batten down the hatches and close the tap in this town better than most, because we always get accused when things are booming in Alberta of living beyond our means, and oh, you cowboys are building office towers that don't have any tenants, and then we manage to fill those towers. Here we are in a lull, in a down period. I think the beauty of this town is people are much more resilient and much more accustomed to sort of gathering their chestnuts and squirreling them away for a long cold winter than people maybe give us credit for. And we're seeing that right now. We're all doing it right now. But you're absolutely right. If you're afraid of conflict, firstly, you shouldn't be in leadership and you shouldn't be running a company, because it is part of the orientation package, particularly when you start your own business. I mean, yeah, I want my people to be happy. I want them to respect me. I want the brand to be great. I want to be known for all the things that I really believe our firm is known for. But I also can't shy away from having hard conversations. I mean, the two people we laid off on March 23rd, if you had said to me on February 23rd, you'll be laying off those two folks in a month from now, I would have said, there is not a scenario in the world that I could dream up that would explain to me why I'm doing that. Like if you told me it's not for cause, like I didn't catch them doing something illegal, I'm just laying them off because the business requires it. You could have given me a million guesses and I would not have said a global pandemic will see my business go off a cliff and therefore I have to, there's no way. And then if you had said, oh, by the way, 2 weeks later, you'll be bringing them back, I would have said, okay, now you're just, now you're just messing with me. Yet here we are. And a month from now on June 6th, we might be doing it all over again. So you cannot be afraid of conflict as long as, and this is the key, you have to lead from a position of empathy. You have to be true to your core values as an organization, and hopefully those values, if not express, are implied. They're rooted in empathy. And when I and I wrote about this in my blog, when I hear people say we have to open the economy, well, maybe you've never experienced losing someone to this, and you have to think, what would it be like if you lost if you lost a loved one to this disease, and to the person who says, you have to keep this economy closed for as long as it takes. We can't afford to lose a life over this. The retort there would justifiably be, yeah, but if I don't have a livelihood, I don't have a life. If I can't work, I have nothing. And so it you have to come at every issue in the workplace and arguably in the home from a position of empathy. And if you start there, not sympathy, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy, an important one. But if you start from a position of empathy in your workplace, then even the most difficult conversations will go well. When I had to explain to the team that back on March 23rd that we laid off 2 people, I just was on a Zoom call and I just became like overcome with emotion. And the team had never seen me like that. And I wanted to be this really strong leader at a time of crisis, but I'm a human and I care about these people and the firm's like a family. And so there I am, nowhere to hide. It's not like on Zoom, like I'm just sitting there like blubbering like a fool in front of my team on a really hard day. Well, that wasn't an act, I assure you. It came from a place of deep-seated care and concern and empathy, and it has driven every single decision that we have made, um, from that day to today, and will drive every decision going forward. What I hope is it will continue to drive every decision once we're back to normal, whatever that might look like. We're learning a lot of good values and virtues right now that hopefully we can take with us.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you say that, because I mean, I think I have seen more business leaders shed a tear in the past month with having these conversations, including myself, than I ever could have imagined. And I think it is. And you mentioned before we got on this call that, this is my first pandemic. And I think that there's something, there's a lot of value to that for everybody to remember. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our firm hosted last Friday an HR roundtable on Zoom. 12 of the senior most HR leaders from some of the biggest organizations in town, a real cross section of industries, not for profit, for profit, you name it, oil and gas, financial services, hospitality, real estate. And every single one of these hardened veteran executives said at one time or another during the call, this is the first time I've done this or I've dealt with this. And so you have a lot of capital and a lot of license with your people right now, because I think they understand as well that as a leader, I'm going through this for the first time. They too are going through it for the first time. There's a lot of slack right now, like, and I mean that's a pejorative word, but there's a lot of goodwill. There are reservoirs of goodwill all over the place that I think you can afford to spend some of by getting it wrong, because you're going to get it wrong. But if you rely on your core values, if you rely on leading from a position of empathy, and if you err on the side of over communicating as an employer and as an employee, being smart and being loyal. Like, I love the fact that my team right now, on a 20% rollback and in the face of huge uncertainty, and we place immense value on camaraderie at our firm. We go for drinks together. We really do bond in that manner. They're working so hard. They're so committed to the cause right now. I'm not seeing a 20% corresponding diminishment in output or in sort of the proverbial give a shit meter. I've actually seen an increase in that is greater than the decrease in their base salary that we've had to implement. So it's been very, and I think the reason for that is because we've earned it by building up that goodwill reservoir for so long. But those are the keys in my mind.
Well, and again, one of the trends I'm seeing is a lot of people, when we talk about in it together, it's all the business leaders, the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, but it's also our team members. I mean, we truly are in this together. And especially as Albertans, I mean, we've been kicked with the downturn in the energy sector. Now we truly have to stick together. And again, that includes everyone, our families, everybody.
Totally. I mean, and that's where I sort of get on my my favorite topic around buy local and around the critical importance. And been saying this. I mean, again in my blog as far back as October, I called out the city, and it was a bit awkward because I sit on a board with the mayor at the Calgary Municipal Land Corporation, and I think my first board meeting was the same month that we published the blog that basically just said, you're not allowed, in my view, to take a big deep bow and promote buy local and how it's so part of your DNA if you yourself don't do that. So, and I called out some of the city's procurement practices around executive search firms. And in their case, the city only uses national and global firms. And here we are, an 11-year award-winning, community-giving, locally owned and operated search firm that only supports local charities, sits on local boards. It's not like my old friends at Corn Ferry who support a developmental golf tour in the United States. Like if I'm a client of theirs and I know that some of my fees are going to support those poor underprivileged NCAA athletes trying to get on the PGA tour, I'm sitting here helping the Gordie Howe dementia care facility get built in Fish Creek Park by playing in the Pro-Am tournament every year for the last 9 years. So it's paramount that we buy local. It is paramount that we support local vendors right now. It is the only way that we are going to get out of this. And so at our firm, all of our suppliers are locally based Calgary suppliers. And uh, we live it, we breathe it, and we expect the same. Now, we don't expect charity. If we weren't as good at our jobs as a national or global firm, you shouldn't hire me. Or if we were way more expensive than a global or national firm, then you shouldn't hire me. But if the price is competitive and if the caliber of the product is as good as or better than, then you have a duty to buy local, because that is the essence of in it together. And it's always been true, but now more than ever. And so I don't want to see my next door neighbor Marietta's, a locally owned and operated restaurant, fail while I don't know, some other national chain like Joey's makes it. If I had to pick where I'm going to eat, I frankly would rather shop at Henry Singer, which has been around Alberta for 82 years and is Edmonton, Calgary based clothing company. That's a very good store. I'd rather shop there than at Holt's, where it's not Calgary based. It's not Calgary owned and operated. So I really do believe that in it together means having each other's back. And if you can source your widget from a locally owned and operated company, as I say, you got it. You have to do it, and that starts at City Hall and it extends outward. And then we'll be fine. We truly will be okay.
No, and looking out for each, I agree 100%. So, one last question here, Adam, is just again the work environment. Everybody talks about what the potential new work environment could look like down the road. What are your thoughts? And are there any pros and cons to work from home versus? I mean, obviously, it affects the real estate market if nobody's coming downtown anymore. But is there a balance or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's such a tricky issue, such an interesting issue. I mean, I think if I was a pension fund who was in the business of owning buildings like Brookfield Place and had just spent hundreds of millions of dollars building it, I'd be a bit nervous about the light bulb that has maybe gone off for owner operators on signing big, expensive long-term leases. Um, I think there's a lot of interesting, like I'm not sure I'd ever sign another 5 or 10 year lease, knowing what's happened with this pandemic, for example. I might only want to sign a year at a time, because my biggest impediment right now from just doing something radical and saying, you know what, guys, the way we're going to survive this is we're going to eliminate our rent entirely. We're just going to work remotely. We're going to work from home. When things get back to normal, we're going to meet in coffee shops and blah, 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 which is what a lot of people do. A lot of small businesses do. Um, I can't do that because I have a 4-year obligation remaining on my lease. So I think, you know, the family, if you're from a home that values the family unit and it's a loving, caring environment, which not all homes are, and that there's a dark side to this, but there are huge benefits to being able to have lunch with my kids every day, even if it's just a quick touch in the kitchen before they scatter down to their rooms or do what have you. So I think the workplace will change. I think there's no doubt that, you look at the meat packing industry and the way they're packed in there, and they're getting sick, and open concept cubicle environments is going to be an interesting dynamic going forward. I mean, we're all going to be germaphobes for the rest of our lives, I think, as a consequence of this. The handshake will no doubt be dead on arrival. I think we're going to learn how to do a bit of a namaste kind of bow. But if I was, I don't know, I see the day where we're all going to be going back to the office, and we'll in the way that we've done it in the past. We're going to go back to the office. We're going to be sitting on a patio having a glass of wine together. Um, we're going to be in our boardroom collaborating together. I do see that happening. Maybe not the balance of 2020,
Right.
but I see more of a return to normal than I see a departure from normal. If you follow me, I
Yeah,
think if
yeah, no, absolutely. So
you
you
know
like,
if like if 0 to 100 was the scale, and zero on our scoreboard is what life looked like in the middle of February.
yeah,
Okay, if we can remember that far back, and 100 is what life looks like right now, I think we're probably going to land at about a 20.
right.
So I really do believe when all the dust settles, and it's going to ebb and flow, but I think when it finally lands and settles, and we've got a vaccine, and this is in the rear view mirror, we'll be back closer to a 20, 15 even.
So working in the office, but maybe working from home a day or two a week and having
Yeah,
that flexibility, but still interacting and everything.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it'll be interesting because in a normal economy, you'd have worries, maybe like, are your people going to be as productive if they're working from home? If the culture of your organization is more about accountability, like when I was a young lawyer at my law firm, there was sort of the 6 o'clock, we call it the drive-by, where the managing partner, instead of walking from his office to the elevator, would take the longest route, which is so happened to be the perimeter of the entire floor plate to get to the elevator. Why? So he could make sure that you were sitting at your desk at 6 o'clock, slaving away as young associates are supposed to do. If that's the culture of your organization, you're going to have to change your culture, because working from home changes that. I'm sitting here talking to you at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I don't know what my people are doing right now. I I have to trust them, and the results will speak for themselves. So, you know, are we going to see more of this creep into the workplace? Probably. We will. Will it last forever? Probably not. Nothing does.
Adam, that's great. Any last words of advice that you would have for fellow business owners, fellow entrepreneurs out there?
Uh yeah, I would say it's cliche, but don't give up. Don't lose hope. Keep fighting. Cash is king. Preserve cash. Park your pride. For sure. Don't be afraid to ask for things. Push back. Lean on friends. Call in favors. Now is the time to survive. And if you were drowning, you would do everything to fight like hell to make sure you don't go under the surface. And a lot of people are feeling that sense of drowning right now. So you fight, you scream for help, you do everything you can, and you park your pride, um, and you communicate a ton, over communicate. Take care of your mental health. I have found that on the days that I get up and exercise first thing, I am in such a better frame of mind than if I wait to do it at the end of the day. And just all the things that you hear people saying and writing about. But for small business owners specifically, it's lonely when you're a small business owner, and you just have to keep it right here, right now. Ask me to solve a problem in September today. I don't know what to tell you. I can't see that far in the future. So it's about the here and now would be the best advice I could give.
Adam, I appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully we can meet in person sometime soon here when things get back to normal. But again, thank you for your comments, and stay safe, stay healthy, and yeah, we'll hopefully see each other soon here in person.
Yeah, I would love that, and thank you for the time, and happy to do this again. And I enjoyed the chat.
Perfect. Take care.
Okay,
Bye
you
now.
too. Bye.